Introducing Dan Perry, who's an Israeli affairs analyst and the former regional editor of the Associated Press in the Middle East. He joins us from Tel Aviv. Welcome, Dan. Firstly, the fact that you're in Tel Aviv in itself is eye-opening after a night of Iranian attacks. Where is public opinion on this, where you are?
I think public opinion basically supports the idea of preventing Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon. Israelis tend to disbelieve Iran's denials that they were even trying to. And I think to the extent that this is appearing so far, I suppose, successful, opinion, which I haven't measured and I haven't seen polls in the past 24 hours, but opinion, I'm sure, is positive. Obviously, this government in Israel is not popular. The Netanyahu government has a history of not knowing how to end a war. We've seen that in Gaza, where the stated goals seem potentially unachievable, and it's become quite open-ended. No one wants to see that happen with Iran. The danger is that it escalates out of control. If Iran really does intend to ramp up their response, I believe they said it will be 20 times worse in the coming hours, and that causes great damage in Israel, then it really could escalate. And to the previous point with the previous correspondent, that could easily draw in the U.S. You could see Iran facing a much accelerated Israeli attack on Tehran, let's say, attacking U.S. assets in the Gulf, and then it could go south very quickly.
You say yourself that Netanyahu doesn't have a particularly good reputation when it comes to ending conflicts. He seems to be pretty good at starting them and maintaining them. But this, of course, has been building up for at least 2 decades. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, is it not, for Netanyahu to destroy Iran's nuclear program and destroy any retaliatory capabilities also. Presumably, that means he needs to keep this going for as long as possible. But it's very difficult to imagine how it all might end.
Well, I think it ends when America pulls the plug, essentially. And I would expect Trump at some point to resume his peacemaker mantle and declare that now is the time for new negotiations or renewed negotiations, having pocketed the advantage that Iran's program was, to a degree, set back. Whether it's months or years, I cannot say, but it may put America in a more advantageous position. We see very clearly that it was an opportunity because Iran's air defenses were so badly degraded last fall. And also because of events of the past 2 years, Hezbollah and Hamas are no longer in a very good position to join the fray. Had they been, that would have complicated Israel's strategic equation quite considerably. So the combination of the weakening of the air defenses, the weakening of the proxies, I think puts Israel in a position where, combined with the green light from the White House, which I have no doubt was the case, they felt they had to act.
What about Israel's own nuclear program, widely believed to exist beyond the gaze of any official inspection whatsoever? Israel isn't part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, so how should Iranians feel about the prospect of an Israeli nuclear strike? Isn't that grounds for self-defense also by Iran?
Well, interestingly, to the extent that Israel ever justifies its own nuclear weapons, which they don't admit to having, the idea is that they're a responsible government in a democratic country that poses no threat to the existence of other countries. I understand they're currently attacking Iran, but from their perspective, they are at war with the regime in Iran, not with the people of Iran, and they have no animosity towards the country of Iran. Israel has felt, and I think justifiably so, that since its existence since it was created, its existence has been very much imperiled by implacable hostility from mainly the Arab countries, not Iran.
Sure, but isn't that hostility simply entrenched by the pervasive presence of Israeli nuclear weapons? I mean, if Iran ends any nuclear ambitions, why won't Israel? It seems like a pretty streamlined solution, no?
I have to call false equivalence there. Israel did not have nuclear weapons when it was invaded by a host of Arab nations in 1948-49. Israel did not have nuclear weapons. Israel's nuclear weapons were not the casus belli in any of the attacks.
Dan, let me get this last question into you, because I think it's important, because it gives us a sense of what may come. If this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Netanyahu to reshape the Middle East, is this what we're seeing at the moment about regime change in Iran? The ramifications are of huge global significance in terms of competing influences in the region. Netanyahu is insisting Iranians should rise up against the regime. Is that wishful thinking on Netanyahu's part?
Well, that depends on how realistic it is. I have no doubt it is his wish. I also think that is the wish of the governments in Saudi Arabia and most other countries of the Middle East. I suspect it's a majority opinion in Iran itself, but there have been multiple uprisings in Iran that were all quashed pretty convincingly by a violent and despotic regime. I'm sure the Americans want regime change in Iran. Basically, the entire planet wants regime change in Iran, with the possible exception of Putin and Russia. Is it realistic? I frankly doubt it. I would expect the Americans to try to impose an endgame fairly soon, largely out of control, out of concern for, as I say, their own assets in the Gulf, their base in Qatar, their vulnerability, the world's vulnerability, the global economy's vulnerability to an uncontrolled escalation of the situation here. I would, however, expect that with the Iranian program having been somewhat degraded, America to apply more leverage as regards a broader ambition for nuclear talks with Iran whenever they should resume, to include commitment by Iran to stop supporting Shiite militias and proxy militias all over the region that have been undermining the sovereignty of a host of countries, from Lebanon to Yemen to everywhere, basically, Iraq in particular.
All right, Dan, good to hear your thoughts on all of that. Dan Perry there in Tel Aviv. Thank you.